A president being accused of being a pimp. A presidential candidate accused of murder, including the murder of 6 soldiers. Is it the new Lifetime Movie Channel movie? Heck no, it's a presidential election. Greetings and welcome to the Long in the Boot podcast. This is your host, G Long. I'm coming to you from the heel of the boot of Southwest Louisiana. Yes, we're back, and I am joined in the Long in the Boot studio this morning by none other than Habz. How you doing?
It's great to be back.
I'm telling you, we haven't done this actually together since before Laura, huh?
Yeah, that was bad luck. There's no telling what this one's going to cause.
Yeah, let's do one about a meteor hitting the Earth.
Lovely. That would be some quality irony in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, when that meteor actually hits the Earth. Oh my goodness. It's been an exciting, I don't even know now. Was it 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5?
We're looking at five or six. It's been over a month.
Man. And lots of fuel for bonfires though.
Indeed.
We can have
bonfires will be raging.
We can have some great bonfires, so much damage, so much craziness. And of course, the cool weather has come along and finally started killing off the love bugs. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. The mosquitoes have evolved though. They can handle the cold now.
Have they? Have they evolved?
Yeah. We had a football game. So that's another step of returning to normalcy. We were in the cane fields and the mosquitoes were rampant, and it was like.
And where'd you have to go again?
50s.
Bunkie, Louisiana.
Bunkie.
Beautiful downtown Bunkie.
It was the bunk. It was.
Oh man, that's a long drive too. At the end of a school day.
Yeah, I went the short route, which is the rough route, and that was no good.
Is that back roads?
Like Pine Prairie, and there's all these. It's like a straight shot almost, but it's just windy, bumpy, nothing.
And you did this on a bus?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. A school bus?
Yes. I believe I was mildly concussed by the time I got there. On the way back, I went a little bit more.
I was going to say, I thought you maybe were mildly concussed before you agreed to do it.
There was a persuasive party involved, AKA my wife.
Oh, yes. I got you. Yeah, that happens. It happens to me sometimes too, where, you think I'm putting my foot down and then there's nothing there.
Yes. Next thing I know, I'm putting my foot down on the gas pedal of a bus that is driving down the back roads. Yeah.
It's, just out of curiosity, how'd the game go?
It was weird because there was hardly anybody there because of regulations.
Right. Yeah.
We were there. The cheerleaders were there. They could still cheer. It felt like normal until you look and they're all standing 6 feet apart and they all have masks on. That was one of the requirements for cheer to be able to participate.
Yearbooks are going to be really weird for this graduating class.
Possibly.
If they even have yearbooks.
And the game, the officials had masks on, the coaches had masks on, and the players had them on the sideline at the beginning of the game. Did not take long for that to go away, though.
How do you blow a whistle when you're wearing a mask?
I don't know. Maybe they make a special. They didn't have like cowbells out there.
I was thinking the yearbook again. It's like, so will there be like a big giant space between each picture?
Probably. You're going to keep the picture socially distanced. You can only fit 10 people per page.
3 inches between each picture just to be safe.
That makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It makes as much sense as
the rest.
Anything else. It's been an exciting week. First of all, we go back just real quick, and we don't need to go into detail, but how about that debate, huh? Was that fun or what?
Y'all didn't see the finger quotes, but they're there. That was not indeed a debate.
No, it was not a debate.
But it was an interesting event. I'll give it that.
It was fun. You know what I enjoyed the most is now I know how Chris Wallace would do if he was like running a daycare.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do well.
Not really. He needed to be a little bit more forceful.
Yeah. And they needed a what they call a cough button for the microphones. Just, cut them off. I like somebody's idea was shock collars. Just if you go over your, and then,
yeah. Guys up in the rafters with tranquilizer darts. It was intense, and he's like, "Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President." And, yeah.
If you hear barking, that is the fact checkers that are listening, and they're apparently saying that we're making something up.
Yeah. So. Rough translation. What they're saying is wrong. Wrong.
You're wrong.
It's been debunked. Wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't fun at all. And in fact, I was going to talk about it earlier this week, and then I just couldn't bring myself to talk about it. There really just wasn't anything to talk about. There was no substance to that debate whatsoever. just people arguing.
Yeah, I don't really think any converts were won by either camp.
And then fast forward to the end of the week, as in like, what was it?
Friday morning.
The president diagnosed positive with COVID-19, the virus.
China.
And the China virus.
Plague.
And his wife as well. And a whole pile of people in the cabinet, or not the cabinet, but his circle of...
His entourage.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. His posse.
His crew got it. They got the COVID.
Hope Hicks and some others. And apparently that's all we really know. The media is salivating at the prospect of, I truly believe that some of the mainstream media actually just wants him to kick the bucket so they can just have something to talk about.
Yeah. Well, if he dies, then they're not going to be able to make fun of anybody anymore.
Well, I don't even know how all that would play out. That would be weird. You've got some Democrats who are saying Trump should step down.
Yeah,
which would
invoke the 25th.
Look, he's probably going to be okay.
Probably.
Because, and here's the thing, almost everybody who gets it is. I mean, it's really not.
Yeah, it might knock him on his butt for a while. But
oh, yeah. I'm sure it will.
It'll slow down the campaign trail.
If it's anything like a friend of mine, if it's anything like a friend of mine who got COVID, apparently it's a great weight loss.
Yeah, that's what happened to my uncle.
Lost a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couldn't taste anything, and he just felt.
Yeah, if you can't taste anything, I bet you're just not that hungry ever.
It would definitely be a curb on the gluttony.
That's my in fact, that's my COVID test I take every day is I gin, taste it, and if I can taste the juniper berries and smell the juniper berries, I'm like, yeah, okay, good. I'm
the juniper it's an aromatic. It's historically medicine anyway.
That's right. It's in fact taking
we'll call it holistic.
We'll call it gin-based hydrochloroquine.
Oh, yes. Similar principles.
There you go. That's exactly right. But the election's almost over. I know I'm happy about that.
It's never going to be over.
You know, at the beginning, I talked about a presidential candidate being accused of murder, a president being accused of being a pimp. No, it wasn't a Lifetime movie. In fact, a lot of people are saying this election right now is the worst election we've ever had as far as mudslinging and name calling and all that stuff.
Fake news.
Well, it's constantly. And I'm here to tell you, folks, this election is not by any means, any stretch of the imagination, the worst mudslinging election we've ever had.
It's not even close.
And you got to go back in time. You got to go back in history. Join me now as we go back to, there you go, to the election of 1828. Oh, such a wonderful time.
Back in the good old days.
The good old days when America was great and and 1/4 its size. It was a young pup of a nation. And the election of 1828 had two men going at it for the prize. The one that we can name first is John Quincy Adams, right? I mean, he's famous. He was famous because of his dad, really. I mean, his dad was the second president of the United States.
He was W before W.
That's right. And he was running to hold his seat that he had won. And his opponent, though, was the guy that we were really going to talk about, and that's Andrew Jackson.
He's too cool not to talk about.
You got to talk about him. And you know him because if you've ever spent a 20, you've looked at him.
He's there.
Now, the picture on the $20 bill, that's not Jackson when he was at his prime, by the way.
No.
He's a little older in that picture. But Andrew Jackson is a whirlwind unto himself. Hurricane Laura versus Andrew Jackson, I think maybe a tie.
He would challenge her to a duel.
He would absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Challenge her to a duel just for.
He would shoot her right in the eye wall.
Being a hurricane in the eye wall. Yeah. Oh, I love Andrew Jackson, though, just for study purposes. As a human being, he was awful.
He might be called a deplorable.
He certainly would have been called a redneck hick.
He was a rambunctious figure, that's for sure.
Yeah, you know, there's so many paintings of him and so many pictures of him and there's so many stories about him. It's almost like this guy can't have existed. This has got to be something made up. And then
it could have been in like a Robert Louis Stevenson book. I mean, he's a weird figure.
The thing is, the more you research Andrew Jackson, the more you find out everything you ever heard about him is pretty much true.
Yeah, there's nothing that really says any of this is false or he was actually way more clean cut than his reputation, but nope. He's
No.
He's a swashbuckler.
He hit the ground running, literally. I picture him coming out of coming out of the birth canal with the high collar, a sword.
Yeah, he was a cesarean baby, and he performed it himself with his saber at his side.
Crawled right out. Oh my gosh, he was something else, and he's running against John Quincy Adams in 1828, almost as a revenge, I think, for the previous election, which I want to touch on just real quick, because that election is kind of what spurred Jackson to run in 1828. And in a way, it's sort of like the story that Trump decided to run for president when he felt like he was slighted by President Obama at that dinner. Yeah. There was a dinner, and Obama said a couple things about Trump that were, humorous, but Trump didn't find them humorous because Trump doesn't like to be the butt of jokes, period.
Nope.
And a lot of people say that was the moment that Trump said, I'm running for president. And that's it. Now, he had thought about it and toyed around with the idea for years, but that one is the one that spurred him on. Well, the election of 1824, I think, gave Jackson every reason to run again in 1828, especially since he felt that he had won the election.
He got robbed. Revenge is a powerful motivator.
He was robbed, I tell you, robbed.
He was robbed.
And so I want to talk about that just for a minute. It was Jackson was running against actually three other men at the time. We had Jackson, and we had John Quincy Adams.
John Quincy Adams, Henry Clay.
Henry Clay, Speaker of the House, Henry Clay. And then some other guy whose name escapes me right now. I can't think of his name.
He wasn't that much in the triumph.
Well, he was sick, and he was not well. Let's just put it that way.
He wasn't one of the contenders.
And so the way the election system worked, you had to get a majority of the electoral votes.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think it was like 131 was the majority. That was the number you had to reach.
Yeah,
today, it's like
quite a bit less than now.
Yeah. Today, it's like what, 270, I think?
Roundabouts.
Anyway, no one got it. No one got the majority of the vote. The other guy was named Crawford. He was sickly, and we don't want to worry about him. But anyway, the bottom man has to drop out basically after they count the votes. Well, Jackson won the popular vote.
He got the plurality, you'd call it, but enough to win now. Whoever gets the most wins now.
Yeah, and Jackson. This is going to be hard to believe as we go through this, but Jackson didn't really care for anybody he was running against. No. And strangely enough, they didn't like him. Go figure.
He wasn't a warm fella.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of people saying how sweet and wonderful he was.
But neither was Adams. But these guys are like complete polar opposites.
Right. Adams and Clay and even Crawford were all men of you could say elite, I guess.
Yes, they were the high ups, the mucky mucks.
Yeah. Clay was Southern, but he was still of the elite. He was of the gentry.
Yeah, these guys were born on estates, not like Jackson.
And Jackson was a man of the country, no question, and who had pretty much raised himself. Let's wrap up the election of 1824. We'll talk about Jackson a little bit when he was a youngster because it's a lot of fun.
He's still the same.
But in the election of 1824, Clay, the Speaker of the House, he has to drop out. And it really comes down to a battle between Jackson and John Quincy Adams. And the group that has to decide who will be president is the House of Representatives.
Who's in charge of the House of Representatives, Mr. Long?
It was Henry Clay.
Hot dog.
A man who, one, hated Andrew Jackson, two, supported Adams, really.
He threw his weight behind him.
And even though Jackson had won the popular vote and had the highest number of electoral votes, he doesn't win the presidency. It goes to John Quincy Adams because Clay called in favors, pulled strings, whatever a Speaker of the House has to do.
He speaks to the House.
He does. He speaks to the House. So the election goes to John Quincy Adams, and Jackson from that point forward referred to it as the corrupt bargain.
Yeah. Probably didn't help the case that Henry Clay ends up not being Speaker of the House after that election, and he gets a new gig as the Secretary of State.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets
some tradage might have gone down.
Yeah, I think there was some favors being traded there.
It's alleged, but the stuff that's not alleged is Quincy didn't win any of the actual election.
Wait,
other
are
than
you
what was
saying
decided
that
by the House.
politicians may have been crooked even then?
No, that was in the glory days.
Glory days. So, yeah, the corrupt bargain. Jackson and his supporters literally began running for 1828's election the day after the 1824 decision that robbed him of his presidency.
And word spread a lot slower back then. So they are rallying the base the old-fashioned way with like leaflets and horseback riding.
Yes, and standing on stumps.
Yes, actual stump speeches.
You know, you could do a lot. Somebody could run for office right now in this area and would have plenty of stumps to
Gather
stand them.
a big crowd around one of these big stumps.
There's stumps everywhere.
I might do it.
We're lousy with stumps.
Yeah.
And lots of stumps that are actually tilted because they're half out of the ground.
It can prove your athletic prowess if you can climb up there on one of those crooked stumps. I promise to straighten it out as an allegory for a government.
Yeah.
I'm working on my campaign right now.
So we'll get back to Jackson and the election of 1828 in a second, but let's talk about Jackson the man. You know, most people in Louisiana, of course, know about the Battle of New Orleans, a battle that was fought after the war had actually ended.
Yeah,
it's just
spread pretty slow.
He just didn't know. And I got to be honest, if they had come to Jackson the day before the battle and said, hey, there's a rumor that the war is over, I don't think it would have made any difference.
Pretty sure that message would have been lost in a fire somewhere.
Yeah, Jackson wanted to fight. He wanted to fight.
He did all the prep work. He already made deals with pirates and stuff.
Well, you ever looked at the amount of... He pushed an army like no man. He was all over the Gulf Coast prior to the Battle of New Orleans. I don't understand how they moved as quickly as they did. It's not like there were great roads back then.
Oh, God, there's not great roads right now in the places we're talking about.
But, I mean, he's like bouncing all over the place. He's in Pensacola. He's in Mobile. He's further into Florida. He's back in Alabama. It was like, what the?
He covered some ground. The man doesn't sleep.
He doesn't sleep. It did help that the guys that were running the show for the British, even though they were well-known officers, they did some really weird things themselves and didn't help their cause much. Yeah. But
helped our cause.
Certainly helped our cause, and it built Jackson's reputation. In fact, his reputation as an Indian fighter and the War of 1812 is well known. But it's going back even further when you look at Jackson as a child. He had a horrible, horrible life, but probably not that strange for the time.
No, people lived rough. People lived rough, especially in the, where he's from.
Well, they don't even know where he was born, technically.
They know ish.
They know he was born somewhere along the border between what is today North and South Carolina. That's about it. And actually, it could even be as far west as Tennessee, because back then the border of South Carolina and North Carolina extended that far.
Yeah.
So they don't know. They really just don't know where he was born. What they do know is that his oldest brother died during the Revolutionary War of heat stroke. Heat stroke killed him. And in heat stroke in the South?
No.
It can't be.
They probably weren't very heavily clothed. Oh, wait, never mind. He was in the military.
Jackson's father died 3 weeks before he was born. So
I'm setting up for a great origin story. It's going to be cheerful.
Well, yeah, this would be just the worst drama ever. I don't know. It would be like, well, anyway, if your childhood builds you and makes you who you are, then everything about Jackson as an adult is answered by his upbringing.
Shouldn't be surprised that he's probably just an angry man.
Yeah, it sounds like he was, and with good reason. So by the time he's 13, him and his brother Robert are training in a militia to go and be in the Revolutionary War. His brother, I think, was a couple years older than him, Robert, and off they went to be messengers.
Yeah, you don't get the serious jobs when you're still a kid.
No. When you're 13,
you're playing a drum,
you're low to the ground,
carrying letters.
You're low to the ground, and you can move quickly. Here, take this message.
Run through the woods, fly.
Try not to get killed. And they didn't get killed, but they did get captured. And they were when kids were captured back then. A lot of times, what they do is they'd make them live with a family as prisoners, kind of.
Yeah, they'd be like their ward with finger quotes,
right? And so they go in and they're being raised at a house, and there is a British officer there as well. And at some point, the story goes that the officer asked Andrew to clean his boots, and Andrew demanded to be treated as a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
Which forbid that kind of thing.
Yeah, like, I'm not your houseboy.
Yeah. And the British officer, being, well, a British officer, attempted to stab young Andrew with his sword. Andrew, being Andrew, grabbed the blade
with his hand.
This is
hand. A 13-year-old kid.
It didn't stop him from getting hurt. Obviously, he had scars all over his hands, and the blade actually did go against his face as well.
Yeah, he got a big old gash on his face. You can see in pictures of him. He's an old man.
And I guess the British officer at that point decided, well, this kid's something. How about we just send him off to prison?
Nice.
And so him and his brother both get sent to a prison camp where they enjoy a bout of smallpox. Good old smallpox. And they almost starved to death as well. Elizabeth, their mother, heard about their situation, and off she goes to go get the boys. She had to go 40 miles, which was no mean feat back then. 40 miles was a good distance.
Yeah, and it's not like nice and easy country to travel through.
No, not at all. When she gets to the prison, she pleads and begs and manages to get them released. They're only children. And Robert, who's basically dying of smallpox at this point, rides the horse back, and Mom rides the horse. Andrew walks with them. And then 2 hours before they finally get home, a cold front blows through with rain and sleet and hail. Because that's what you need when you got smallpox.
Yes, it's a cure-all.
And so within 2 days, Robert's dead. He's dead. And Andrew is dying. Somehow Mom manages to nurse Andrew back to health. And then Mom, being, I don't even know, just a saint, I guess, she volunteers to go nurse American prisoners of war on a British prison ship that was in Charleston. So she goes there, and now understand this is literally in the same year. We're not talking time here.
Yeah, this isn't a big progression.
And she goes off to work on the British ship and immediately gets cholera and dies.
It happens.
It does.
Not the most sanitary of things, the British prisoner of war ships.
The British threw her in an unmarked grave, and Andrew became an orphan. He was 14.
Wow.
He blamed the British for all of it for the rest of his life.
It kind of makes sense.
So that's probably why I don't think he would have stopped at the Battle of New Orleans. I think he wanted to kill him some Brits.
Yeah, give him some redcoats.
That's right. A couple other incidents just to give you an idea of Jackson's temperament. He was accused of getting in fights all the time. He caned I don't know how many people. Apparently he liked using a cane on individuals.
He does that for a long time.
Yeah, he absolutely does. He eventually gets into a little bit later in life, he gets into it with a guy by the name of Dickinson, Charles Dickinson, who, like Jackson, raised horses and raced them, and they had some kind of altercation. And Dickinson makes the cardinal error of attacking Jackson in the local newspaper. You can't do that. No. Jackson's not going to take it. Jackson then, in the local newspaper, wrote back challenging him to a duel. And a lot of people thought, well, this is the end of Jackson. He's done. Dickinson was known to never miss.
He was a very accomplished duelist himself.
He had already dueled several times. Jackson came up with a strategy that some might call into question. I know I would. Jackson said, well, he's such a good shot. The best thing I can do is when we turn to fire is just let him fire. And maybe he'll miss. Maybe his aim will be off. Maybe he'll turn too quick. And then that'll give me time to aim slowly and get off that shot. And the plan would have worked really well, except for one problem. Dickinson did fire and hit Jackson in the heart, except it didn't go deep enough.
Oof.
The bullet stopped literally inches, not even inches, millimeters, according to the story, from his heart. He carried the bullet the rest of his life. It was in his chest the rest of his life.
It didn't even knock him down.
He didn't get lead poisoning.
Yeah, he just kept it with
him. He didn't get
an abscess. It's probably going to cause more problems to take it out.
He didn't get an abscess of nothing. I mean,
I don't understand how that happens.
Anyway,
people dying of splinters back then.
I'm sure Dickinson was looking at this going, is he going to fall?
He's not human.
He's a
that was a really good shot. You can't really ask for better than that in a duel.
Yeah, little smoking hole in his chest.
Yeah. Jackson just looks down, looks back up, frowning at him.
So Jackson, of course, normally when this kind of thing happened, the other person would determine that honor had been, fixed and shoot their shot into the air. That was generally how it was done.
Yeah.
Not Jackson. That's a different guy.
You just shot me in the chest.
You just shot me in the chest. Now it's my turn. And he, of course, aims very slowly. And this is my favorite. shoots Dickinson in the stomach.
Oh, that's the worst one because it's not going to kill you quickly.
And somehow I just have a feeling that was not a mistake.
I think he like aimed at his heart and then he's like, no. And he just lowered his shot a little bit and blap right in the gut.
Yeah, and blew a big old hole through Dickinson. And of course, when you get shot in the stomach back then,
you're dead.
You're dead, but you're not going to die quick.
It will take you a long time.
Oh, and the pain. And people accuse Jackson of being brutal, of being cold-blooded for this. Even though he'd been shot in the chest, people are like, well, that's not you. Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, that's overkill.
And Jackson sort of became a social outcast with some people, but Jackson really didn't care.
He doesn't really learn his lesson either. I think he's supposed to have been in over 100 duels in his lifetime.
Well, he stabbed a man named Samuel Jackson.
Hey, mother. No.
Samuel Jackson supposedly in Nashville, supposedly because Jackson wouldn't get out of his way.
Wow.
By the way, Andrew Jackson eventually had a kid named Samuel Jackson, which I think is kind of funny. But
that's cool. What was his middle name, maybe?
I know. I want to know.
Please be Lawrence.
This guy, Samuel Jackson in Nashville, though, they had an altercation on the street, and Samuel Jackson challenged Andrew Jackson to a fist fight. And Andrew Jackson says, I'm not going to fist fight you, but I'll duel you.
Yeah, escalation.
And Samuel Jackson said, I'm not going to duel with you. And he bent over to pick up a stone, and he was going to brain Andrew Jackson with the stone. Jackson pulled his cane. There's a sword in it.
Of course. Why would Andrew Jackson have a normal cane?
Pulls the sword out, and while the guy's bent over, stabs him through the back, and then it comes out through the chest and pierces his heart. And kills him in the street. Went to court, and they found him innocent by reason of self-defense.
So anyone talking about this guy being a murderer, he's actually killing people in the streets. This is not like accusation because he sent somebody in for a war.
No.
He kills people.
One more story about Andrew Jackson, just because it's funny. Whereas the story about when Jackson was a judge and he had a guy named Russell Bean in court. Bean was accused of beating a child so bad he mutilated him. Oof. Now, we don't have any sympathy for Russell Bean, but apparently Russell Bean was so upset and so angry in the courtroom at one point, he storms out. He runs out into the street, and he manages to get a gun, and he barricades himself. And the sheriff and the posse were unable to get him. Jackson, who was still in the court, adjourned the court for 10 minutes. The court will take a 10-minute recess. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Gets a pistol in each hand and goes out into the street, looks at Bean, demands he surrender, and Bean did.
You listen to Jackson.
And then when they asked Bean about it, the quote is great. He said, well, when he came up, I looked him in the eye and I saw a shoot. And there wasn't any shooting, nary another eye in the crowd. You know what? If Jackson was coming at me, I'd go to the other side of the street, man.
I would do whatever I had to do. Jackson, if he says he's going to do something, for better or worse, he's going to do it.
He's a scary man.
He doesn't bluff.
The election of 1828, there's one other incident that will relate in just 1 second. So the election, so this is the guy we're talking about, Andrew Jackson. I guess we have to talk about his relationship to his wife just for a minute too,
probably.
Right? Rachel, who he loved, by the way, loved her dearly. Probably the only husband. I'm assuming that is the only person he ever treated tenderly.
I think so. His devotion is usually without question.
But that story is going to play out in the election of 1828 in a weird kind of way. And so we can just for a minute talk about it. And it's the fact that Rachel was married when Jackson met her. She was married to a guy named Robards, was his last name, Captain Robards.
Captain Robards.
I never know if these people are actually in the military, because in the South, a lot of people just called themselves like Captain. And you're like,
you get cool titles.
Yeah, you get a title.
Being awesome.
Exactly.
I'm rich enough. Call me Captain.
Well, her marriage was unhappy, apparently. And apparently Robards was incredibly jealous, but he may have had a reason. There is a possibility that Rachel was, casting her eye in a different direction.
Maybe. And
Andrew Jackson was definitely on his way up. Everybody knew it. He was making money. He was a land speculator. He was acquiring slaves.
Yeah.
He had a plantation. He was going to go somewhere. He was going to be successful. And a person with his kind of drive rarely is unsuccessful.
No.
He is certainly a type A personality.
He's going to succeed in either becoming famous or infamous.
Or dead.
Infamous. Or dead.
That's what I'm always surprised that some family didn't like take out a hit on Jackson.
Probably scared to.
I know, right?
The reputation.
He's a Terminator.
That Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop until you are dead.
Anyway, Rachel, she leaves her husband and she runs off to Natchez, Mississippi from Tennessee, from Nashville. And Natchez, Mississippi at this time is actually controlled by the Spanish.
Nice.
So Jackson, the family, her family, Donaldson's, asked Jackson to go get her. Now, while this is all going on, supposedly Robards files for divorce. That's where the problem is. Robards never follows through with the divorce during all of this time. In fact, he gets really angry when he hears that Jackson went off to Natchez to get her because, and this is one of those weird parts of the story that I still don't understand, Jackson had to swear allegiance to the King of Spain in order to use the Spanish laws of marriage to marry Rachel. So he married her in Natchez.
Yeah, as like a fake Spaniard.
Yeah, and then they came back to Nashville acting as husband and wife all the way. Robards heard about that and supposedly got really angry, and so he just didn't follow through on the divorce. Who knows? Yeah. You know, paperwork back then wasn't real.
So according to the record keeping, she's married twice at this point.
Yes.
That's bigamy.
Yeah, and eventually Robards did finish and he had to go to court, and it was a whole to do. But eventually the divorce happens, and then as soon as the divorce happens, Rachel and Andrew get married again.
But this time in God's country.
Yes, and it's
America.
That's right. Back when it was great.
Yeah,
and so whether and of course there's a lot of different stories about that whole incident with Rachel. Did she do it on purpose? Did she know what she was doing? Was she dumping a crappy husband for a better one? You know, she was 21. I've seen pictures of her. I don't understand the desire by both these people to hang on to her because she looks kind of dowdy, but I don't know when the picture was made. It's painting, not
maybe
a picture.
Maybe the family money was an influence.
The Donaldsons did have some money.
They were kind of well to do, but she was, I guess we could call her homely.
Yeah, plain. Certainly. And look, if she was not small.
No.
Jackson could have probably hidden behind her 3 or 4 times.
He was quite a slender dude.
Although apparently that didn't matter. But he could swing a sword.
Yeah.
So now we get to the election. Let's just move right on ahead to the election of 1828. The two sides had newspapers that supported them. And the newspapers back then were notorious for printing anything. And I do mean anything.
Yeah, it could be completely fabricated. It didn't matter.
Sam Adams, listen to me. John Quincy Adams was drinking Sam Adams one day.
Probably.
And his supporters were printing up all kinds of things about Jackson. Jackson's supporters were printing up all kinds of things about Sam Adams. I did it again.
John Quincy.
I guess I'm going to have to go to the store and buy some beer today. Maybe.
They get the Sam Adams Oktoberfest is actually pretty good.
It doesn't have pumpkin in it, does it?
No, there's no pumpkin in it.
Okay. Pumpkin. Anyway, it's a gourd. Anyway, so the election's rolling around and these guys are attacking each other using the newspapers, and they're printing up these handbills. And that's actually some of the funnest things. But the big attack on Jackson is actually on his wife. They are relentless to Rachel. When they find out about the double divorce, double marriage thing.
Yeah, they don't hold back.
They don't. They are. And what's weird is, from what I've been able to gather doing all this research, Andrew was able to hide it from her. Like, she was unaware.
He protected her from the evil things that people were saying.
And he was really good at it up to a point. Eventually, she saw one of these handbills that was being passed around. They also called them broadsides, which I kind of like that term better.
It seems more aggressive.
Yeah, it's definitely
in
aggressive.
The street and they hit you with a broadside. You're like, oh my goodness, it sounds like a cannon shot in the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, and the attacks on Rachel were obviously that she was, a wanton woman.
Easy.
Yes.
She was easy.
A woman of ill repute.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson was not a person to take kindly to that kind of stuff and managed to hide it. But eventually she found one of these handbills, and supposedly it caused her to have a heart attack.
She did cause her some great distress, and she did end up having a heart attack.
Yeah.
You can, I guess, connect the dots however you wish.
Yeah. I mean, she may have, look, like I said, she wasn't thin. Maybe she had cholesterol problems. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like everybody would have cholesterol problems.
I mean, people died of the simplest things back then.
Yeah.
You know, oh no, I've got a hangnail. Oh.
Oh, no, she overdosed on butter.
Yeah, it could have been. In fact, she's going to die before the inauguration.
Yeah.
And Jackson's going to blame everybody in the whole election.
Yeah, the people who opposed
her
and the
death.
people who brought her into the mess. He's not going to forget that.
And they said really horrible things. They also said horrible things about Jackson as well. One of my favorites, though, is what they were saying about Adams. Adams was not easy to attack. I mean, you could say a few things. One of my favorites, though, one of them was that he was effeminate. If you've ever looked at a picture of John Quincy Adams, and there's an actual photograph of John Quincy Adams,
oldest president to actually be photographed,
and the one word that would not come to mind in any way, shape, or form is effeminate.
No, because he looks like he'll go beat your butt in the street just as much as Jackson does. And by this point, he is freaking old.
Yeah, he's an old dude, and he's there's just no way. But one of the things that cracks me up is they dug up a controversy from when he was a secretary working for an ambassador to Russia,
And he was young.
and supposedly he was procuring women for the Tsar of Russia. So that was the pimp story.
Yeah, they say he
Adams
took
is
like American
a pimp.
Girls and like gave them to the guy.
Yeah, and the other one, and this shows you how weird this election was. Jackson's supporters found out that Adams, get this, had a pool table in the basement of the White House. Ooh, a pool table.
You're getting extravagant with the taxpayers' dollars.
Adam's son, John Adams, go figure.
God.
Come on, guys.
Come on, give me a new one. Sam
would
Go
be
with
good.
Sam.
When he was doing an inventory, apparently, of some things that Adams had acquired for the White House, he put the pool table down as part of the inventory. And immediately the Jacksonian people said, oh, he used taxpayer dollars to buy a pool table. By the way, it was a whopping $50, which was a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Adams spent $14,000 getting stuff for the White House. And in the 1820s, $14,000
Is a lot of money.
that's just a staggering sum of money. But it turns out, of course, that the pool table, he actually bought that himself.
Yeah, that was his own private funds. That was not.
It was a
not
used pool
from
table.
Oh, of course.
And
He went to a thrift shop.
this is my favorite, though, is the story from a newspaper, a Jacksonian newspaper. The very term billiards evokes an image of a secluded room where players and loungers waste countless hours, smoking cigars, imbibing liquors, and wagering upon the fortune of the game, all the while employing language and swapping stories that would have offended wives, sweethearts, and mothers. And the game is commonly associated with gambling and would therefore be illegal in most states. So,
So this dude is both elitist and like a dirty, low-down scoundrel at the same time.
and Adams was like, I just like it for exercise.
Yeah, it's just something to do.
Yeah, you know what? I wished I had a basement with a pool table
lots
in
of
it.
fancy people.
I wish I had a pool
billiards.
table in my basement. First, I must acquire a basement.
A basement. It wouldn't have fared very well during old Laura.
Well, it's just, and he kept denying it. He kept putting out things saying, look, I bought it. He had proof. It didn't matter to Jacksonian supporters.
Proof rarely matters
Yeah.
to partisan zealots.
Look, even today, does
This is
proof
not a new
really
thing.
matter?
Not a new thing.
Look, these days, if you show somebody, I don't know, a cue ball from a billiards table, and you say, the Democrats say this is a cue ball from a billiards table, Republicans will go, no, it isn't.
There's no way. That is false, sir. That is obviously an ostrich egg. Like it, yeah, things will happen.
I wish I had the clip from that Monty Python skit where the guy goes in for an argument. It's the room for arguments.
Oh,
It's like,
yes.
I'm here for an argument. No, you're not.
That's how debates go.
But yeah, that was Adams, the attacks. I mean, they also referred to Adams' mother as possibly a prostitute at one point, which What?
Yeah.
Come on.
A little far-fetched.
I don't think John Adams Sr., I don't think his wife was a prostitute. I'm pretty sure.
Probably not. She had a pretty solid reputation.
She did.
Easy to go after the dead, though.
Yeah. Well, they also accused Jackson's mother of having secretly had an affair with a mulatto.
Whoa,
and
scandal.
That Andrew was the product of that mulatto. And that was pretty scandalous back then to say something like that. Didn't matter. They said it.
Yeah.
And
it's out there. There's nothing you can do.
But Jackson was certainly the target of the worst of the insults because it was easy.
Yeah, he was
You
such
say, he's a bloodthirsty maniac. Well, you could prove that.
Yeah, what sort of proof? How about all the dozens of people he's killed? Well,
he's hot-tempered. Do you have proof?
Yeah, he stabbed a guy with a sword cane.
He carried a sword cane.
He carried a sword cane. Gentle people don't own those.
If he didn't beat you with the sword or the cane, he'd stab you with the sword that was in it. I mean, that's a hot-tempered individual usually.
Yeah. Just in case the beating is not enough, make sure there's a sword in this cane. You never know when you might need to upgrade.
Wait, I gotta pull this up because this is another part of this, and for some stupid reason, I don't have it in front of me. I feel terrible, listeners. I do. This is me being unprepared. Shame on me. And I'm still unprepared apparently because I can't find what I'm looking for. There we go.
Put some music in post.
Yeah, that's it. No, I got it. It's the broadsides known as the coffin handbill or broadside, and it's got all kinds of good stuff. But the Adamses supporters finally got around to pulling up something from his war record because that's really what he ran on. Jackson was a war hero. He had defeated the Native Americans and stolen their land for America.
Outright. God wills it.
Yeah. And don't worry, though. He didn't get all of their land. He'll finish the job when he becomes president.
We'll get that later.
Yeah. But he definitely took a large chunk of the land. And what's bad is he took the land from the people who actually helped him.
Yeah, the Indians were fighting in the 1812.
Yeah, they were helping him. And they were allies, and it didn't matter. But the coffin handbill, and in fact, there are a few of these still floating around. They're worth a lot of money if you can get your hands on one.
Man, that'd be awesome.
Well, so many were printed that they're just out there.
Yeah.
And people occasionally find one, and then it'll go up for auction, usually at Sotheby's. And the last one I saw, that it sold for like $350,000.
Jam. Out of my price range.
So if you ever see a piece of brown paper that says some account of some of the bloody deeds of General Jackson, and it has 6 coffins at the top with little names, you grab that sucker and hang on to it for dear life because it's worth money.
Lots.
But it recounts the execution of 6 militia soldiers just after the Battle of New Orleans. They attempted to leave. They had signed up for a 6-month tour of duty. It was 3 months in. The battle they felt like was over. The war was over. They wanted to go home to Tennessee. So these are people from Jackson's home state. And they went to the supply area of the fort they were in. Fort, get this, Jackson.
Whoa.
And they acquired some stuff and were going to leave, and they were caught and arrested. And the commander of the fort sentenced him to death during the court martial and sent it off to Jackson, who, of course, approved it. I mean, that's pretty much, okay, I tell you what, men, you have a chance. We're going to send this letter off to Andrew Jackson, and if he says we don't have to execute you, then you'll live.
Yeah, we'll see what his thoughts are on desertion.
And these guys were like, oh, God, we're dead men.
Damn it. Why does it have to be Jackson?
We're dead men.
Send it to someone else.
Please. Anyway, so they sent it off to Andrew, and Andrew actually signed the death certificates. And I loved how they did it, though. This thing describes the execution. They brought out 6 coffins. They put them out in a line. They made every man kneel on top of his coffin.
Whoa.
And they assigned 5 men to each guy who shot them from behind. And so they would fall into fall onto the top of the coffin, and they could just kind of like flip the lid, I guess, and right in. One of these guys was actually a father of 9 children.
Ooh.
Anyway, so the execution goes off with almost no hitch. One guy ends up getting 4 metal balls in him, but he didn't die for a while. Took him 4 days.
oh man, why can't they just finish the job?
I know. Why can you just?
That just seems cruel.
Can you just put one in him?
Just give him one more. Check.
I want to know who missed.
Yeah,
because they didn't do that thing back then where you leave one
guy is empty so he doesn't have to feel the guilt.
No, people back then were okay with killing. It just wasn't that big a deal. But the Adams supporters blamed Jackson for this. They said he executed, innocent men, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to look at it from Jackson's point of view. You can't have men deserting.
No,
because he felt like he was defending the Gulf Coast. He wasn't about to because if 6 men can leave, everybody can leave.
Yeah. And he had to assemble an army out of various pieces down there in that campaign.
Yeah. And so, you can't let these guys go. But during the campaign of 1828, a congressman by the name of Taliaferro put out another handbill to go with the Coffin handbill. And this is my favorite because it's the supplemental account. He's going to tell you more to this. There's more to the story.
Always.
And you're gonna love it. And I'm just gonna get to the part where he starts with the more to the story. And I swear to you, this went out to thousands upon thousands of people. These were handed out to the American people. Now, gentle reader, prepare yourself to receive a shock, which I feel will prove more than you can bear. So you're going to be shocked by this so much you won't be able to bear it. But
you won't believe it. You're not even going to believe it.
Shortly after these unfortunate American soldiers had been consigned to the earth, an order arrived from the monster Jackson. I sense bias. Directing Colonel Pipkin to have them sent off immediately to him in New Orleans, nailed in their coffins, or Pipkin would incur the penalty of having his head severed from his body. So I'm sure he did it. They were accordingly disinterred. That's dug up for you folks of a youthful age.
They done got dug up.
The done got dug up. And upon their arrival at headquarters, I shudder whilst I relate to you. Would you believe it, gentle reader? This monster, this more than cannibal, General Andrew Jackson, ate the whole 6 militiamen in one meal.
He ate 6 men in one meal.
Oh, my goodness.
I can't eat 6 hamburgers in one meal.
Now, you might say, oh, come on, he's making this up. But no, he goes further. He says, if you are disposed to doubt this statement, I can refer you to many of the most respectable officers who were in service with him in New Orleans. So he says, and can you, my deluded countrymen, even think of making this horrible anthropophagian monster president of the United States? I actually didn't know what that word meant.
That might be the greatest insult word in political history.
Anthropophagian literally
means people eater.
I wish it had the word purple in front of it.
The purple anthropophagian.
If you place him at the head of government, what pledge can you have that if he should at any time be displeased with his cabinet, that he would not have his secretaries roasted and eat them for his dinner?
He is going to eat anyone who disagrees with him. I don't know if we've heard a lot of stuff about President Trump. I have never heard anyone alleging that he would possibly eat you if you made him mad.
Oh, no, I heard that, man.
Wrong. You wouldn't even taste good.
Don't use the word savory with me.
Don't use savory. I swear, I'll eat you right now.
Anyway, So those are the kind of things that they had to deal with. And I'd like to say it was a close election, but it weren't.
Not even close. Like, this is the first example of a man of the people getting the people on board.
Yeah. And the thing is, when it comes right down to it, I think that the country had evolved. I think that's really what was happening is you had so many immigrants coming in, Scots, Irish, and everything else that were settling in the West. And even the South, but it's still the West at this time.
Yeah.
That the number of people supporting Jackson just flat out outnumbered. And then he also had a lot of support in elitist circles in the North as well as the South, because this was party politics. Party politics was starting to actually happen. And in fact, the 1828 is kind of the beginning of party politics.
Yeah, it's starting to gel. Like, Jackson is the first,
he's the first
Democrat president, and
Adams' party, weren't they? They were the Republicans.
It was
but they
still
were,
the Democratic Republicans.
but they're going to become Whigs eventually.
Yeah, that's going to shift to Whigs, and
they'll
Democrats
be wiped
will
out.
Solid.
Yeah, and they'll be wiped out by the new Republicans, the neo-Republicans.
Yeah, with Lincoln.
So the Whigs are the Whigs.
But like the Whigs by definition, they're anti-Jacksonian. That's their platform.
Yeah.
What does Jackson say about that? We say the opposite. Boom.
Right. And Jackson as president, and he wins easily in 1828, and he wins even easier in the next election when Clay goes up against him. And he stomps Clay.
He still hasn't forgiven Clay for the whole corrupt.
You know
dragon.
what? I bet if you dug Jackson up right now, he'd go, "Where's that Clay?"
Oh yeah.
Have you seen my wife?
It was an enemy for life.
He was something else. Actually, one of my favorite stories comes from when he was president, and he was doing the horrible Indian Removal Act, and Supreme Court Justice John Marshall said, "You have to stop that. You can't do that anymore. We rule against you, President Jackson." And Jackson was like, "Well, you've made your decision. Let's see you enforce it."
Yeah.
And then he just kept doing it.
It was like a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one of us runs the army?
One of the other stories was the dinner they were having. In fact, it was the Calhouns were at the dinner, and Jackson, when he would sit down at a state dinner, would take a pistol out of his pocket and lay it on the table.
Just in case anyone tried anything.
Yeah. And he was getting irritated with Calhoun. Big surprise. And at some point, Jackson just went and put his hand on the pistol. And Calhoun wisely shut up and excused himself and his wife, and they left.
It was subtle. It was the subtlety that is necessary in the highest office in the land.
Yeah, this is one of those guys that, you wouldn't be his friend, but you'd have to give him grudging respect just for being, unafraid. I don't think death. I'm surprised he died. I would have thought death would have been afraid of him.
Yeah, it's like death gently knocks on the door. Sorry, President Jackson. Is it okay if I come in for a second?
He's like looking in the window when he's asleep.
And Jackson just like, with his eyes closed, starts tapping on the pistol. Dad's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll come back later."
Don't make me get up. And he was always jacked up too. He was in pain his whole life.
Well, no kidding. He's got bullets just floating around in him.
Yeah, he had another one in his shoulder that he carried for years, and they took that one out at some point. Surgery was not an easy thing back then.
No, here, bite this, drink this.
I know.
Gotcha.
Here's a stick. Bite it. That'll kill the pain. God. He got into a brawl with a guy who became a politician later, Thomas Hart Benton.
Yeah.
The uncle of the painter, and that turned into it was knives and guns, and it was a full-on brawl.
He's Yosemite Sam, the president. Even when he was the president, he was like older, and some dude tries to shoot him. The dude's gun misfires. Dude pulls out a second gun. It also misfires.
That's the brawl. That's the one.
Yeah, that's when Jackson chases him down the street with his cane as the president. Like, this isn't like former president. He isn't old. Like, the actual president outruns any sort of bodyguards he could have, and he's beating a dude with a cane.
He's going after Thomas Hart Benton in the street. And the quote that witnesses actually testified to was, "Now defend yourself, you damned rascal."
Yes.
That's why Jackson's so much fun to research. He's a horrible human being, but man, that's what history is about. The horrible people are often the most interesting.
He's not gonna go unnoticed, that's for sure.
So anyway, that's the election of 1828. Makes this election seem pretty tame by comparison.
You would think. Yeah. They couldn't even come up with any good insults in those debates. One of them called the other one a clown. One of them called the other one stupid. That sounds like elementary school.
It really did. And we got the vice presidential debate coming up, supposedly. We'll see. Is that Wednesday?
Wednesday, I think. Yeah.
And but now they've changed the rules. They're going to be 12 feet apart instead of, I think it was 6 or 9. Now they're going to be 12 feet apart.
Bigger distance.
Yeah, they'll be apart even more. It's like, why don't just go off to different states?
Can we just Skype it?
That's really, I think.
The Zoom debate.
Oh my gosh, Zoom. I'm so sick of all that. All of it.
Anything virtual, I can't handle anymore.
Well,
I'm sure in the rest of the country they're doing all right, but we're still in hurricane-ravaged, war-torn, a post-apocalyptic area. It's
online school is a failure nationwide. Yeah. It really is. If you look into it, first of all, it's what it's doing is it's putting kids that are less well off further and further behind.
Yes, like the gaps are getting bigger
because the rich are creating their own little pocket schools, and they've got super high speed broadband. they can deal with it. They can even hire tutors to come in.
Yeah, or tutors to like Zoom with you.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the resources and they can buy all these other programs, different educational programs
Right.
that everyone else can't.
And that's really the saddest part of all. We need to go back to school. I'm sorry, we need to go back to school. That's it. I am 100%. All this virtual nonsense needs to stop.
Well, we're back, man.
Yeah, you guys are back. We're still trying to get to our first day. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, y'all been out since March.
Yeah, and it's just not the internet schooling is not working, and then we know that.
No, it works if you have, for one, internet that helps, and two, if you're kind of doing it independently, you need to be fairly bookish already.
Yeah,
these are the ones who are going to be super college bound and go to grad school and stuff like that.
Well,
but
I find
if
it
you're trying to reach the
ironic
masses,
that-
it's not really going to be an effective way to do it.
yeah, and I find it ironic because if a kid was sitting on a computer for 8 hours doing a game, the parents would be like, "Are you still playing that game? Are you still on the computer?"
Yeah, but now you're being forced.
Yeah.
You better get on that computer. Get back on that computer.
Get over there. I don't want to do it anymore. Shut up.
Shut up, play with your iPad.
I know, play with your iPad. What they need to do is, for history, and I still maintain this, start creating games that are history, but disguised.
Yeah. You know how many kids in my class talked about how much they like playing Red Dead Redemption?
Well, there you go. That's a perfect example.
They're like, I know what the Homestead Act is. Like, how?
Exactly.
Red Dead Redemption. I've never played it myself, but my hat's off to you, Red Dead.
Yeah, and Red Dead Redemption 2. And not only that, but you got the zombie download content, so you can also kill zombies. And
Well, learn something whilst ridding the world of the undead.
that's right. So it works. But you could. There's a game I played years ago called Mafia. It was takes place in a made up city, but it's like the 1930s.
Oh,
There's all kinds of great references in that game to actual
you could make something that's
historical
hyper
event.
realistic that the kids could control.
And they would learn something.
Yeah.
That's-
Make Andrew Jackson a playable character. Just call it The Duelist. And they made a movie about him. Or well, I guess it was about Jean Lafitte, probably. The Buccaneer.
Yeah, I remember that.
Charlton Heston played Andrew Jackson.
Oh man, that was Charlton Heston. He overacts in everything.
He's going
he
to
did.
play everything exactly the same.
That's right. What?
Bondage.
The British? I thought it was ants. No, that's in your next movie.
That's your other movie. What about The Pharaoh? No, that's not this movie either.
Talking apes?
Damn dirty apes. Oh, yeah. You could make a drinking game out of the 10 Commandments with how many times he says bondage.
I gave up on my drinking game during the debates.
I couldn't keep track of it.
I couldn't keep track. I was just like, okay, I can't do this.
And
to
my
myself.
game lost. He never said unbelievable. You wouldn't believe it. I never heard him say that.
Biden waited forever to say, look.
I know.
I was so disappointed. He said listen a couple times. I should have gone with listen. But
the game could have ended when he said, "Will you shut up, man?" I was not expecting that line.
That
Will
was-
you shut up, man?
that was both rude and funny.
I was like,
You clown.
can you imagine if they had televised debates when Andrew Jackson was running?
Oh, it would have been, he would have just pulled out a gun and shot the guy on national
Good evening,
TV.
everyone. I am Chris Wallace. Rules for tonight's debate. We will not be allowing cane swords.
You'll notice
Will you let him have cane sword? How come I can't have cane sword?
You'll notice that tonight we have put both candidates inside bulletproof plexiglass boxes. That is not to protect each candidate from the other, but in fact to protect the candidate from himself and his own anger. Oh man, I love that election. It's the first modern election. That's actually what it's called. It's known as the first modern election.
Yeah, because they're campaigning, they're mobilizing the front.
That's right.
The newspapers are crazy heavily involved.
And the spoils system is going to play a big part of it because everybody that's supporting Jackson is expecting a job.
And they're going to get
and
it.
they get it. And this begins that whole process of favor granting.
Yeah, and that's going to happen for well over the next 50 years.
Till what?
Until what?
The
now?
Pendleton Act.
The Pendleton Act put it on paper that said you're not supposed to do it.
They still do it.
They still do it.
Of course they do. That's
Well,
the way it
no,
is.
you just say it's merit based, and then you're good.
Yeah. Well, of course he can run FEMA. He raises horses.
Duh,
What do you mean? Brownie, you're doing a good job.
Bernie.
Good job. All right. I guess we ought to wrap it up and let you get to whatever you got going on today. What you got going on today?
Man, I actually have no idea.
Oh,
I
nice.
have no idea. I think I'm going to go clean out my bus. This is the lovely rural.
Oh, you got to disinfect it.
No, I'm going to like clean it because it's like dirt. Because you got to keep the windows down and stuff. And
Did your windows any of your windows get broken out?
no, my tail lights got busted up and my license plate got ripped off.
Yeah, I've seen some weird stuff, man, with cars and like windows just getting shattered from debris.
Yeah, we had a mess. We've got some displaced teachers at the school.
Speaking
They're
of
in
debris,
different rounds,
before I
different
go,
rooms.
one thing, and maybe our maybe the guy Doug Evie's running for office. Maybe he's the guy I need to call.
Maybe.
And but we need a landfill in Beauregard Parish for residential trash. When I was over in Livingston, hiding from not having power,
Yeah. The aftermath.
they have a residential trash drop off place, and it's by the bag. 55-gallon bags is $1.50. 30-gallon bags $1. 13-gallon bags like 75 cents or 50 cents, and you just drive up in your car, pay the money, throw the bag in the compactor, and drive away. Done. It's so convenient. And you can get trash pickup, but a lot of people don't want to pay for it. They'll just bring their trash to this. Well, we need something like that. In Calcasieu, they've got a place right now where you can drop off residential trash, but they check your license to see if you're a resident of Calcasieu Parish.
Oh, you don't want no foreign trash in there.
And they're not making the regular runs right now. Like our run was supposed to be Friday. They didn't come again. And
Yeah, they're
behind.
Yeah,
I get that.
they're off.
But if we had a landfill, a lot of people, I think, would probably just bring their trash to the landfill.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't just let it pile up.
And so maybe I need to call our candidate and see if he can get on.
I know
that.
he posted something very recently about
Yeah, it was about debris removal. Yeah,
not the
he mentioned all the roads around here, in fact, but not my road.
My road got it.
Did
But I'm one of those elitists. I might even put a pool table in the house.
in your basement?
Yes, I'm going to dig that basement and stick me a pool table in there to show my worth.
That's right, a billiards table, snooker.
Yes.
All right, man. It's been great. Finally getting back to doing the Long in the Boot podcast. I was looking forward to this. It was kind of hard getting it going again, but here we are. Hey, if you got anything you'd like to add to the conversation, check out the Long in the Boot Facebook page. I haven't actually been messing with the Long in the Boot website too much because I've just been too busy. And to be perfectly frank, or to be perfectly Glenn, I guess.
Frankly, my dear.
And you can always call and leave a message, and I will absolutely answer you. It's area code 337-502-9011. The email longintheboot@gmail.com. You got anything else to add today?
What kind of question you want to ask the people? Have you been getting any feedback on any of the previous questions?
I am curious. Well, I did actually get 2 people that gave me a little feedback, basically just they were hiding out,
Yeah.
as everybody was. I don't know. I can't think of a good question right now.
I might have one.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So with politics and all the stuff going on with debates and accusations on both sides, Trump made up the virus, or the media is just having too much of a field day, or, another president put a pool table, or his mom's a whore, stuff like that. Evaluate the following statement. Fact checking is biased.
Ooh.
Independent research cannot be done in an unbiased way. Evaluate that statement.
There you go. Do you think fact checkers are biased? Is that basically it?
Pretty much. Or is it possible
Is it
for
possible
you to look
to-
stuff up on your own and it not be biased? Can
Right.
you fact check?
Can you fact check on
unbiasedly?
your own?
Like, is information itself biased? Because I've heard that accusation.
Ooh.
Finding data, it's all skewed. Evaluate.
Discuss
Amongst yourselves.
it amongst yourselves. This has been Coffee Talk.
Welcome to Coffee Talk.
I'm getting verklempt. All right. Well, folks, that's going to do it for Long in the Boot. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody's getting back to some type of normal. If you're out of your home, I hope you get back in it soon. And if your home was damaged, I hope that's getting fixed. If hopefully you're back in school, and if you're not back in school, hopefully you will be very, very soon.
It's coming soon.
And well, other than that, I can't think of much else to add. hopefully we'll be out of this election cycle real soon. Of course, the day after the election, I suppose we're starting the next election cycle. Here you go. Do you think you'll actually know who the president is the day after the election?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I bet we don't.
Yeah, we've seen this since 2000.
And don't forget, join us for our next podcast when we talk about the giant meteor heading towards Earth.
Oh, yeah. We'll make it happen.
Actually, there is a tropical wave in the Gulf that we have to.
Aren't there like two of them? They're talking that.
One of them's no big deal, but there's another one that we have to kind of keep an eye on.
It's pumpkin spice time, man.
And
we don't want hurricanes.
I don't know what Greek letter it will be.
Gamma was one.
I hope it's not.
I saw.
Well, I just hope it's not Omega.
Oh man, Omega.
We get to Omega, we're in real trouble.
That's a big deal.
That's the end.
Yeah, that's the end of all things.
So there you go. All right, folks, y'all take care. We'll catch you next time on Long in the Boot.